This time of year always makes me want to do some costuming, but with my health the way it is currently, the reality is I'm just not well enough to sew anything. But that doesn't necessarily mean I can't do any costuming, because a lot of people can't sew and lots of people make Halloween costumes. And I actually did a similar thing last year when I was also too ill to do any sewing, and I made a no-sew night sky costume. And all I did was thrift a navy blue prom dress and pin, literally safety pin, star-shaped gift tags to it. But last year I was so ill I couldn't even film anything. This year I am doing a bit better, so I thought, why don't we explore together this idea of a no-sew costume? So my favourite Halloween costumes are the scary ones. I'm a traditionalist. For me, it's got to be at least vaguely spooky, if not scary, to qualify as a Halloween costume. But I know I'm kind of in the minority, and that nowadays you can kind of go as anything for Halloween, whether that's a sexy mouse or some sort of funny pop culture reference. So I thought about something really simple, like do I just go as a witch and make it sort of like a thrift challenge, but then I thought that's possibly too easy. I also thought about doing something like a zombie, where I sort of used up my fabric scraps and made some like a raggedy costume. But honestly, with the way of the world at the moment, that just feels like poor taste. And after that, I was sort of out of ideas. So I turned to Pinterest, and there was lots of options for no-sew costumes on Pinterest, but they were mostly for children. But there were some that sparked inspiration, one of which was a knight, as in a knight in shining armour. And I liked this idea because last year I went as the night sky, and this year I could go as a knight. That will be really simple. I'll thrift a grey jumper and maybe paint it to look silver, and I can make some sort of tabard out of an old sheet. And as I was thinking about this idea, I did think to myself, pop culture reference, knight, lady knight, it's got to be Chapel Roan at the VMAs, right? Because even then, if you don't get the pop culture reference, it's still a cool knight costume. It's not the most up-to-date pop culture reference, but I thought that's possibly going to work in my favour, because I bet there are people out there who've already done this and I can follow their tutorial, perhaps. And so I started doing some research, and yep, absolutely, several people have already done this, and even one of them has made a pattern. And so when I saw this, I was like, well, that makes things even easier. Let's give it a go. I mean, how hard can it be, right? To make armour. No idea what I'm doing, but at least I have some guidance. I'm really excited, and it's been a really long time since I've been this excited about a costume project, that's for sure. I started by cutting out the paper pattern to make a sort of paper mock-up. This pattern was created by a cosplayer, Alison Tabitha, and I will link the pattern in the description, as well as her channel, which has lots of cosplay tutorials style videos. Thank God for people sharing their craft online, because I wouldn't have known where to start. The original costume was made by a leather artist called Zana Bain, also linked below, but I've never worked with leather before, and getting my hands on enough to make this costume seemed unlikely. I wanted to use entirely secondhand materials to avoid spending any coupons on this project, so was limited to what I could find online. I had hoped I might find some fast fashion metallic leather jackets or something, but I knew I would have to do a lot of searching. For now, I taped the pattern together. I knew I would need to mock up this pattern to check the fit. The people I'd seen use it online had a very different figure to me, but also I was worried about getting in and out of it. It seemed most people had used straps and buckles, but I knew I wasn't going to have the energy for that, so I hoped the mock-up would help me figure out how I could rig the pieces so I didn't have to do a million tiny buckles. I've done all my thrifting now for bits for my Chapel Roan costume. I did this all on Vinted. I firstly didn't have the energy to traipse around charity shops, but also one of the benefits of online thrifting is being searchable, and so I could put in, you know, silver metallic jeans or whatever and see what came up. For my base layer, I've gone dark but sparkly. So these are a pair of leggings. I have tried them on. They're a touch big, but that's okay. So these will be like my base layer of chainmail. And then this is the knitted jumper I bought. Right. Night-like. It's Rita Ora for Primark. God knows when that collaboration happened. Anyway, that will be my base layer. And then for the armour, I originally bought 3 pairs of metallic jeans. Yes, turns out this was a trend, and I've got several pairs that look like they've been worn once or twice. One of the orders was cancelled. So I have a lighter, heavier pair. These are ASOS. So they're stretchy, but not, it's more like a bonded stretch, if that makes sense, more like a Ponte Roma. And then these are stretchier leggings, but they're a darker shade. But I thought this would be on the Chapel Roan version of the costume. There's some sort of black leathery bits and some silvery leathery bits. So I thought we'd sort of layer these two together. I had hoped for a second pair of trousers like this, but they didn't post them, they couldn't find them. It is what it is. So I'm going to work with what I've got and see if I can cut everything out of just these two. Now, I will have to piece it, and there will be seams. And of course I hadn't thought about the fact, I was like, oh, I'll just piece it when I was thinking of this idea, thinking about the fact that I can't sew. So I'll have to glue bits together. Hopefully that works. I also did a little test on this pocket flap of like my fabric glue to see if it worked. There's a couple of things I've got. So I've got these silver sequins and I've got these big silver beads. And I also found in Tante Ingrid's craft stash a whole load of like, there's more like studs than rivets, but there's only a handful of them in the silver colour left. Most of them are shade different colours. And I was like, well, let's just make it a glitzy rainbow Chapel Roan night costume. I mean, it's for Halloween. I'm not that bothered. I am nervous about these being a bit soft. Oh well, if it doesn't look great, it doesn't look great. This is about me having fun and doing a fun craft project, less about an accurate cosplay, right? So, you know, bear that in mind when we get to the final reveal and you're like, not your usual standard, Claude. I know. It's not meant to be, okay? And don't compare me to these professional cosplayers who have put a lot more time and effort into their project than I have, right? Shall we try on the base layers so that we can see what we're working with? So after I did that fitting with the paper pattern, I did add a little bit on to various pieces, namely the thighs, because I was a bit nervous about how small those were, just the sides of the bodice thing. And also, I don't know what I'm going to do about the crotch. Well, I didn't, because this just, you're supposed to like put a length of elastic in the back, but no, thank you. So I had the idea. One of the garments that I picked up is incredibly stretchy. Good for decoration, but not ideal for structural pieces. And I thought, this is a size bigger than I wear. Why don't I just use the waist section of this and cut like a pair of knickers out of it? Basically cut the legs off and make a pair of knickers, chastity belt setup thing, because at the VMAs, the one that Chapel Roan wears, it has a back, and I would quite like mine to have a back. They might come a bit higher as a result, because these are quite, well, firstly, they've got quite a long depth, but also being too big for me, they come up higher than they should. I think that's my plan, and I'm just sat here and I've been looking at pictures to try and figure out, because I've only got the 2 pairs of trousers now to cut up, which bits I want to cut from which colour. I went and raided my stash of black elastic. I say my stash of black elastic, it is really my Tante Ingrid's, my German Great Arms stash of black elastic, and she did not throw anything away. So one of the things I found was all these really awkward lengths of elastic like this, which I've never known what its intended use was, but I thought that they'd make really cool backs of like bits of things. Not only are they then going to be more secure, but also, you know, that would be kind of a cool design feature rather than just a strip of black elastic like this. But like, look, why are we saving that, Ingrid? It's not going to go around anyone's waist. I also found these 2 buckles. So I think I might make like the belt with these 2 sliding buckles sort of system. The fun bit is all the sparkly stuff. So these are, the packet's open, so I have to be careful, but these are like the press-in studs I showed you. So I've got like a gold, a green and a purple, and then a few silver ones as well. I thought as well they might be helpful as a sort of rivet to put the elastic on. Don't know whether their teeth are strong enough for that, but we can try. Got these big dobbing beads. My God, Caviar! She was living the life! Big, fat, dobbing ones. They do glue on with the glue, which God knows how old it is, but it's still fine. It still worked. So this is what I will be using because it's what I have. Trying not to buy any new stuff. Obviously, that's kind of the deal with me. I've made a mess. I need to tidy up and then I need to make some decisions about my cutting out. I think I'm going to use my new electric scissors as well. The new electric scissors took me a really long time to get used to, but they were great for this job. These metallic fabrics were a pain to work with, and watching this back, I think I could have made better use of the fabric if I deconstructed the trousers first, but oh well. There were times I just had to use my ordinary scissors. I think with practice I will get the hang of the electric ones, but I was worried about slipping and running out of fabric. I also struggled with not being able to use pins. These coated fabrics would show the holes, so you can see me struggling to keep things accurate. Not a huge issue for a make like this one, but frustrating to my inner perfectionist. Making the knickers turned out to be a stroke of genius, but I was really nervous to cut this piece. I tried my best to make sure they were symmetrical, but it was fiddly to get both sides to match.
Oh my god.
I ended up having to have some weird seam placement on the thigh pieces, but it didn't really bother me. I just had enough fabric with the two trousers, so if it meant I didn't have to buy a third pair, I was going to make it work. I also figured out that the best way to use these electric scissors was to chalk around the pattern pieces and then follow the chalk line. The shape of them means the fabric is raised quite high off of the table, which made accuracy difficult, but the chalk lines were much easier to follow. I thought a lot while cutting up these trousers about the fact that for a garment that was obviously really niche and would get very little wear, they were actually really well made. I paid £1 for these, and I'm pretty certain they had never been worn. The fact that I was able to find multiples of such a niche garment as metallic trousers in like-new condition for a pittance just blew my mind. We're at a point of consumerism now where I can find everything I could ever want secondhand, no matter how unusual or obscure, with very little effort. What a waste. I'm just glad I was able to give these items an obscure second life and keep them out of landfill a little longer. When it came to gluing all these pieces together, I started to lose momentum a little bit. Was this project good? Should I even be making it? I know art doesn't have to justify itself, but I was putting so little effort into this that it did feel wasteful. I had no idea if this gone-off glue would hold. I wasn't confident that I was able to make this work at all, and it actually turned into a lot more work than I had anticipated. I was reminded of the last time I made a silly Halloween costume, my 1930s owl, because that too started off as just a fun experiment and I ended up spending weeks painting it. And I've worn it once. I still have it, and I keep it mostly in the hope I might be able to lend it to someone for World Book Day or something. But will a bad Chapel Roan cosplay have much of a life beyond this video? Somehow, I doubt it. The thing that kept me going was the idea that I was at least using things I had. This god-awful glue, it really stank, was probably 20 years old and had arrived in my collection via a road trip from southern Germany with everything else I inherited from my Tante Ingrid. It wasn't good for much else apart from this silly experiment because it was so old, so I had kind of given it a purpose. The fabrics that went into the trousers I cut up for this are incredibly difficult to wash. It's one of the things that makes me furious about fast fashion. Not only are these clothes socially appropriate for a very limited number of situations, you can't wash them without the metallic coating coming off and shedding microplastics everywhere. At least I was turning them into items that won't touch the skin and therefore won't need washing. And while I'm not going to get much use out of this costume, I might be able to at least repurpose it for a show, or more likely the skills I learned whilst making it might be transferable. I was intrigued by the 3D nature of these pauldrons. Of course, they were just strategically placed darts, but it's not the sort of item I've ever had to create before. This fabric was a bit too lightweight to really create the necessary structure, but that's something I know I need to look for should I ever make armour again. Similarly, I've never used studs like this before. I've used my fair share of hot stones and diamantes in my costume career, and they always fall off. Studs like this might be a better answer, depending on the costume, of course. I don't think they do anything for the inside of your washing machine should they fall off. If I was going to be playing about and making things that I knew were not up to my usual standard, what better way to experiment than with things that would otherwise be junk? I have been gluing sequins onto this costume for 3-4 days now. It's actually been really hard going on my hands, and I think this is to blame because it's a metal tube, and also the glue was gone off a little bit. I don't know if you can see, it just started leaking out of every crevice, and so like the more I tried to squeeze the glue, the more the tube would rupture. I caved. I bought new glue. I was trying desperately not to buy anything new for this project, but I feel like something like this I'll use again. It's not just for this project, you know, and I'm giving up on this. I admit defeat. The other aspect of it is these little studs to install are, you've got to bend the metal backs back, and like 1 or 2 is fine, but rows and rows of them through several layers of fabric become really tough on my hands. So I'm saving those for now. I'm hoping, I've not got that many more sequins to stick on to complete the design. So I'm hoping with a fresh tube of glue, I can just like dab, 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 bash it out, and we'll be done with all the gluing. The thing about this is that it takes 10 minutes, it says, to go off. It's repositionable within 10 minutes. So I'm going to have to glue everything and very carefully leave it to dry, which is fine. I might just have to set up several bits at a time. Anyway, come on, we can do it. Oy, oy, oy. I have finally finished putting all the sequins on this. Also, if I sound a bit different, I've bought a new microphone. One that doesn't clip on here, so I don't constantly... So if I sound different and that annoys you, I'm very sorry. But I'm here to show you because I finished finally sticking on all the sequins. I mean, I think these are my favourite. I think these look great. My next dilemma is about attaching the elastic because I've done several tests with several different methods. So, where have they gone? For these wrist guards, I just used the studs. I just used the studs to attach the elastic, and on this one you can see the bottom one has already fallen off. So it's fine, doesn't really need a bottom one for this because it sort of goes over the back of the hand. But that does mean, like, my plan for this one was also to use the rivet studs. I suppose they're not rivets, and it didn't work, so I've had to glue it. Now, it's not the most secure, So I've tried on the headband with my new glue, and like the headband does hold. I haven't glued any more sequins on the headband because I didn't know if I was going to do all studs or just sequins, or whether I didn't know whether the studs would catch in my hair. I didn't know whether the sequins would curve to my head. So this I used my new glue, but because it takes so long to go off, my dilemma is that I need to really put all the gubbins on. I suppose I could pin the elastic into position, but then because this fabric is non-woven, that will leave a hole. Don't really care, it's a Halloween costume. I don't know, but then part of me is like, well, if I'm just pinning it on anyway, I might as well just leave the pins in. I just don't know. So I need to do a test. And that is part of, like, it's been several days since I've worked on this project, and it's because I've not been very well and I'm procrastinating trying all this stuff on because I'm not well enough to stand up. And so, you know, like trying to get these in the correct position sitting down. But then I'm probably going to be sitting down most of the time I wear the costume anyway, so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I do the fitting sitting down. And also, I think that's what I might do instead of faffing about with all the elastic, largely because I'm just worried about being uncomfortable. So if I just safety pin everything to the base layers, I think I'd just be happier. The one exception is she wears like what I would call a suspender belt, a garter belt for this section of the legs. I don't really know how that's going to work. I also am not entirely sure how, what do you call these, pauldrons for the shoulders, where I would put the elastic here anyway. Do they go further down on the shoulder? Because mine kind of want to sit there, but then where does the tie go? Like, is it going to be right up there in my armpit? Do I attach it? Why didn't I think of that? If I just attach it to, where is it? There it is. That's why I can't find it. If I attach it to the shoulder on a bit of elastic, and then it can sort of flap in the breeze when I move my arms. I just don't want this to be restrictive. It's a silly thing. I mean, for goodness sake, I didn't think Chapel Roan could get any camper, but I've made her multicoloured and sequined. So it's sort of, I suppose it's kind of like Good Luck Babe and Pink Pony Club combined in terms of aesthetic. So I like it. These are my finished pants. Have I shown you these? I think these are hilarious. But I think this will work. I haven't put anything on the back because obviously I don't want like beads or sequins poking into me when I sit down. I'm already tired. Okay. Let's give it a go. Let's put everything on. I think I might have to do elastic for the bodice, because I don't think I'm going to be able to pin into that mesh jumper. Yeah, got some decisions to make. I have a bit of a dilemma. I think it looks good, right? But I've had to pull the jumper so far down that now, if I move my arms, the jumper sleeves are 3/4 length. So it's quite stretchy. I mean, that looks hilarious when I sit down. Oh my God. Where's my wrist thingies? So do I just cheat it like that so that the ribbing starts there like that? But then see, this is my issue. I didn't tighten the elastic enough for that because I was expecting it to go over the jumper. I mean, that's kind of worked there, hasn't it? I think I'd get away with that. But I think, like, in terms of the knickers, I think that's fine. Do I just want to pin this here? But then I think getting in and out of it will be worse. I think that's actually fine there. Yeah, good. I don't want to pin that on either. It's just this. Do I just pin this on? I also hadn't considered the fact that being sat down, this is the torso length of this is so long that it covers up the knickers anyway. Do I hike it up? Do I try and pull the knickers down? I think higher looks better, although then that means my bust dart is too high. Ah, okay. I think we just live with it, and then the knickers can be a fun surprise.
It was a fun surprise.
No, I think this bit does need elastic. unfortunately. Let's do the legs. It'll just be, will be punk. That's what it will be. It will be punk. Oh, hang on, I forgot an important detail. The headband. It's so silly.
It's a good thing you're not putting it on the internet.
Oh no.
The headband really adds something.
Doesn't help that I put it on really badly. I think to tie in the safety pins, I might just put a load of safety pins on the headband. Make it a bit more punk.
Yeah.
Because I'm covered in safety pins, I think I'll just lean into the punk. I might add some decorative ones. Also, these straps are too short, but that's the thing when you're reaching round to the back to do them yourself. Maybe I do need another one on this arm. I don't think so. I think it's fine. I'm already losing sequins, however. So that glue wasn't as good as I thought it was. Actually, it's the new glue. It's the ones that I've stuck on with the new glue that are all falling off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So actually, the old ones were better. I don't know if you can see my, suspender belt system. Quite pleased with that. That's almost sexy. How's the back? Not bad. But nobody's going to see the back. I'm going to be sat down. I was worried it would be really unflattering and I would hate it and it would make me feel bad about myself. But it doesn't. It makes me feel self-conscious. But I don't feel bad about myself. It's so silly. I love it. I love it. Me, Woody and Sagan had great fun shooting this reveal on a spooky October evening as the night was drawing in. Sagan is trained to heel to Geo, my power chair, and so he was very confused about what we were doing and what he was supposed to do. It made getting some serious chapel roan, or should I say chapel rolling? I'm sorry. It made getting footage a bit tricky, but we had a great laugh. With all the safety pins, I decided to lean into the punk look by adding my collection of protest pin badges. I think the whole thing turned out a bit more cyberpunk than Joan of Arc anyway, but I don't hate it. For a no-sew Halloween costume, I really don't think it's bad. It was still a lot of work, and it turned out the new glue I bought was terrible. I lost so many sequins, but only from the places where I used the new glue. But I think it's fun. It meets all my criteria. Spooky, a little sexy, a little silly, comfortable. The worst part about it was the hair and makeup, and mobility aid friendly. I've got an appreciation shot for the knickers! I'm too close to the camera. I had fun. I didn't injure myself and I was able to make it entirely out of secondhand stuff, except the rubbish glue. I did spend an awful lot of time thinking about how much easier this would have been if I could sew, but I didn't cheat. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching. See you next time. H-O-T-T-O-G-O. You can take to go. Literally, to go. Knee deep in the wheelchair seat and you're feeling nauseous. Is it chronic illness?